Hello and welcome back to Midnight Deep Dive. If you're new here, welcome to our cozy corner of the internet where we explore fascinating topics together in the quiet hours. I'm so glad you've decided to spend this time with me tonight. Have you ever walked past an old building with strange symbols carved above the doorway and wondered what they meant? Or heard hushed conversations about exclusive clubs and hidden knowledge and felt that curious pull toward mystery? Tonight, we're diving into something that has captivated human imagination for thousands of years: secret societies. From ancient mystery schools in torchlit temples to modern gatherings in exclusive retreats, we're going to explore why humans have always been drawn to create these hidden circles of knowledge and belonging. Now, a gentle heads up. We'll be discussing some historical events that weren't always pleasant: religious persecution, political intrigue, and a few unfortunate endings. But I promise to keep things informative rather than disturbing, because our goal is peaceful exploration, not nightmares. So make yourself comfortable, get cozy, and let your mind wander with me. We're about to explore the shadowy corners of history where secret handshakes changed the world. There's something deeply human about wanting to belong to something special, something exclusive, something not everyone can access. Throughout history, humans have created invisible circles within visible societies, groups bound by shared knowledge, special rituals, or common purposes that outsiders couldn't quite understand. But what exactly makes a society secret, and why have we been creating them for thousands of years? At its heart, a secret society is simply an organization that conceals certain activities, knowledge, or membership from non-members. That might sound mysterious, but when you think about it, most of us have been part of something like this. Remember childhood clubs with secret handshakes? High school friend groups with inside jokes that made no sense to anyone else? Even modern group chats with running jokes and references that would baffle outsiders share something fundamental with history's most famous secret societies. They create boundaries between insiders and outsiders, between those who know and those who don't. But secret societies take this impulse much further. They typically have three defining characteristics: selective membership with some form of initiation process, practices, or knowledge that remain hidden from the public, and strong bonds of loyalty among members. These three elements create what psychologists call in-group cohesion, a powerful sense of belonging that comes from shared experiences and exclusive knowledge. The psychology behind why humans join secret societies is fascinating. First, there's the simple appeal of exclusivity. Being chosen for something special makes us feel valued and important. It's the same psychological reward that comes from getting into a prestigious university or being invited to an exclusive party, just intensified. When you're part of a group that not everyone can join, it elevates your sense of self-worth. Then there's the allure of hidden knowledge. Humans are deeply curious creatures, and the idea that there might be truths or wisdom that most people don't know creates an almost irresistible attraction. Throughout history, secret societies have promised members access to everything from mystical wisdom to practical trade secrets, from spiritual enlightenment to political power. This knowledge, whether real or imagined, becomes more valuable precisely because it's restricted. There's also the comfort of structure and ritual. Many secret societies developed elaborate ceremonies, hierarchies, and traditions that give members a sense of order and meaning. In uncertain times, knowing your place in a well-defined system can be deeply reassuring. The rituals themselves serve psychological purposes. They mark transitions, create shared experiences, and strengthen bonds between members in ways that ordinary interactions cannot. Community and mutual aid played crucial roles too. Before modern social safety nets, secret societies often functioned as support networks. Members helped each other with employment, provided financial assistance during hardships, and created bonds that transcended economic class or social status. The Freemasons, for instance, were famous for helping fellow members and their families in times of need. It's important to understand that not all secret societies are the same. Historians generally categorize them into several types. There are mystical or esoteric societies focused on spiritual knowledge and inner transformation. There are professional guilds which protected trade secrets and maintained quality standards. There are political secret societies formed to resist oppression or advance revolutionary causes. And there are social secret societies, primarily focused on fellowship and mutual benefit. The level of secrecy also varies dramatically. Some societies are secret only in that their rituals and inner workings remain private, while their existence and membership are well known. Others operate in complete shadow, with even their existence unknown to outsiders. And many fall somewhere in between, acknowledged but mysterious. Throughout history, secret societies have thrived in particular conditions. They flourished during times of oppression, when openly expressing certain ideas could be dangerous. They grow during periods of rapid social change, when traditional structures are breaking down and people seek new forms of community. They emerge when there's restricted access to education or knowledge, offering alternative paths to learning and advancement. The relationship between secret societies and mainstream society is complex. Sometimes they exist in harmony, filling social needs that official institutions don't address. Other times they're viewed with suspicion or actively suppressed by authorities who fear their influence. This tension between secrecy and transparency, between exclusive knowledge and public accountability, has defined the history of secret societies from ancient times to the present day. One fascinating aspect is how secret societies create and maintain their mystique. The use of symbols, special clothing, and coded language all serve practical purposes. They help members recognize each other and protect sensitive information. But they also create an aura of mystery that attracts new members and reinforces the feeling of being part of something extraordinary. The human need for meaning and transcendence plays a role too. Many secret societies promised not just worldly benefits, but spiritual transformation, moral improvement, or enlightenment. They offered paths to becoming better, wiser, more capable versions of yourself. In a way, they functioned like schools, religions, and therapy groups all combined, communities dedicated to personal growth and collective improvement. As we move through history, we'll see how these fundamental human needs and desires manifested in different ways across different cultures and time periods. From Egyptian mystery schools to modern elite gatherings, the forms change, but the underlying psychology remains remarkably consistent. We're always searching for belonging, for meaning, for knowledge, and for that special feeling that comes from being part of something larger than ourselves. Long before there were Freemasons or Illuminati, long before medieval guilds or revolutionary societies, humanity's first secret societies emerged in the ancient world. These weren't organizations in the modern sense. They were mystery schools, spiritual traditions that promised transformation through hidden knowledge and sacred rituals. And they laid the foundation for everything that came after. Picture ancient Egypt, perhaps around 1500 BCE. The sun beats down on the Nile Valley, but within the cool stone temples, priests gather in torchlit chambers where the public never enters. These priests weren't just religious officials, they were keepers of knowledge, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, architecture. All were considered sacred sciences, closely guarded by the priestly class. To learn these arts, one had to undergo years of initiation and prove oneself worthy of the secrets. The Egyptian mystery schools taught in levels, much like modern secret societies have degrees or grades of membership. A new initiate might spend years learning basic principles before being admitted to deeper teachings. The ultimate goal was spiritual transformation, to die symbolically to one's old self and be reborn with divine knowledge. This idea of death and rebirth through initiation would echo through secret societies for millennia to come. Greek civilization developed its own profound mystery traditions. The most famous were the Eleusinian mysteries, held annually near Athens for nearly 2,000 years. These weren't small affairs. Thousands of people from across the Greek world made the pilgrimage to Eleusis to be initiated. Yet despite this massive scale, the central secrets of the mysteries were never revealed. We still don't know exactly what happened in the innermost sanctuary, what the initiates saw or experienced. This is remarkable, a secret kept successfully for 2 millennia. What we do know is that the experience was transformative. Ancient writers spoke of the Eleusinian mysteries with reverence, suggesting that initiates came away with a different understanding of life and death, losing their fear of mortality. The philosopher Cicero wrote that the mysteries showed people not just how to live well, but how to die with hope. Plato suggested that the highest truths could only be grasped through direct mystical experience, not intellectual study alone. The god Dionysus had his own mystery tradition, the Dionysian mysteries, which were more ecstatic and wild than the solemn Eleusinian rites. These involved wine, music, dance, and altered states of consciousness, ways of breaking through ordinary awareness to experience divine presence directly. Women played central roles in these mysteries, which was unusual in Greek society, and gave them a rare space for spiritual authority. Pythagoras, the mathematician and philosopher, founded what was essentially a secret society around 530 BCE in southern Italy. The Pythagorean Brotherhood combined mathematics, music, astronomy, and mystical philosophy into a complete way of life. Members followed strict rules: vegetarianism, specific dress codes, and curious prohibitions like not eating beans or not stirring fire with iron. They believed that numbers were the fundamental reality of the universe, that understanding mathematical harmony could lead to spiritual enlightenment. The Pythagoreans kept their teachings secret, sharing them only with initiated members. They developed a system of recognition signs and passwords to identify fellow members when traveling. They believed in reincarnation and saw their studies as purification of the soul through multiple lifetimes. Their mathematical discoveries, like the famous Pythagorean theorem, were considered sacred knowledge, not meant for public dissemination. The Orphic mysteries, based on myths about the legendary musician Orpheus, offered another path to spiritual transformation. Orphism taught that humans had both earthly and divine natures, and through proper ritual and moral living, one could strengthen the divine part and escape the cycle of reincarnation. Orphics followed strict purity rules and used sacred texts, some of the earliest religious writings in Greek culture, to guide their practices. As Greek culture spread through Alexander's conquests, these mystery traditions mixed with Eastern philosophies, creating new syncretic forms. The cult of Isis, originally Egyptian, transformed into a Greco-Roman mystery religion that promised salvation and eternal life to initiates. Isis temples appeared across the Mediterranean, each with inner sanctums where secret rituals were performed. Perhaps the most significant ancient mystery tradition for Roman society was Mithraism. This religion, focused on the god Mithras, spread rapidly through the Roman Empire, especially among soldiers and merchants. Mithraic temples were deliberately built underground or in cave-like structures, reinforcing the idea of hidden knowledge. The religion had 7 grades of initiation, each with its own ritual and teachings. Followers met in small groups called caves, creating intimate communities bound by shared secrets. Mithraism's symbolism was complex and astronomical, linking the gods' mythology to celestial movements. The famous image of Mithras slaying a bull appears to encode sophisticated knowledge of astronomy and the precession of the equinoxes. This blending of mystical imagery with scientific understanding typified the ancient approach to secret knowledge. The boundary between religion and science was much more fluid than in modern thought. These ancient mystery schools shared several common features that would influence secret societies throughout history. They used initiation rituals to mark the transition from outsider to insider, creating powerful psychological transformations. They organized knowledge in hierarchical levels, with deeper secrets revealed only to advanced students. They employed symbols and myths that worked on multiple levels, surface stories that hinted at deeper meanings. They also promised transformation, not just information. You didn't join a mystery school merely to learn facts, but to become a different kind of person. The knowledge was meant to change you fundamentally, to reveal truths that couldn't be fully expressed in ordinary language. This experiential approach to wisdom would continue to characterize many later secret societies. The relationship between these mystery traditions and mainstream society was generally positive. Unlike later secret societies that sometimes threatened political power, ancient mysteries were usually sanctioned by the state and integrated into civic life. The Eleusinian Mysteries, for instance, were an official Athenian festival. Participation in mysteries was seen as compatible with regular religious duties, adding a deeper layer of spiritual experience to conventional practice. Yet there was always some tension. The exclusivity of mysteries could breed resentment. Those not initiated might wonder what secrets were being kept, what advantages initiates might have. Occasional scandals erupted, like when Alcibiades was accused of profaning the Eleusinian Mysteries by performing their sacred rites as a drunken joke. This was considered such a serious crime that it derailed his political career and contributed to Athens' troubles in the Peloponnesian War. The ancient world's approach to secret knowledge reflects a fundamentally different worldview than our modern one. Today, we generally believe that knowledge should be freely available, that truth is objective and can be communicated through clear language. The ancients believed that the deepest truths required preparation to understand, that some knowledge could be dangerous in unprepared hands, and that the most important wisdom came through direct experience rather than intellectual study. As Christianity spread through the Roman Empire, it gradually displaced these older mystery traditions. Yet Christianity itself absorbed many of their features. Baptism as initiation, the Eucharist as a sacred mystery, levels of instruction for converts. The early Christians even used the language of mysteries, calling their teachings Mysterian. In some ways, Christianity succeeded partly by offering a mystery religion that was more accessible and democratic than the older traditions. By the 4th and 5th centuries CE, the ancient mystery schools were closing. The last performance of the Eleusinian Mysteries probably occurred around 392 CE, ended by Christian emperors who saw pagan practices as threatening. Mithraic temples were destroyed or converted to Christian uses. The old wisdom seemed lost. But it wasn't truly gone. The books and ideas survived, preserved in monasteries and libraries. The basic concepts, initiation, hierarchical knowledge, transformative wisdom, would resurface again and again throughout history. When medieval scholars rediscovered ancient texts, when Renaissance thinkers sought wisdom beyond Christian doctrine, they turned to these ancient mysteries for inspiration. Every secret society that came after drew, consciously or not, from this ancient well of hidden wisdom. As we move from the ancient world into medieval Europe, we encounter a very different kind of secret society. One born not from mystical seeking, but from practical necessity. The craft guilds of medieval towns were, in many ways, the working person's secret society. Organizations that protected trade knowledge, while building some of the most magnificent structures humanity has ever created. Imagine a medieval city, perhaps Paris or Cologne around 1300. Walking through the narrow streets, you'd pass workshops where craftsmen labored, weavers at their looms, blacksmiths at their forges, bakers at their ovens. Each craft had its guild, an organization that controlled who could practice the trade, set quality standards, and protected the secrets of the craft from outsiders. These weren't optional social clubs. They were powerful economic forces that could make or break a person's livelihood. The guild system operated on a three-tier structure. You entered as an apprentice, typically as a young teenager, bound to a master craftsman for a period of years. Often 7, though this varied by trade and location. During this time, you lived with the master's family, worked without pay, beyond room and board, and slowly learned the craft's fundamentals. It was understood that an apprentice wasn't merely learning technical skills, but being shaped morally and socially into a proper member of the craft community. After apprenticeship came the journeyman stage. Now you could be paid for your work, but you didn't yet have the right to set up your own workshop or take on apprentices. Journeymen often traveled from town to town, working with different masters to refine their skills and learn regional variations of their craft. This wandering tradition created networks of craftsmen across Europe, united by shared knowledge and recognition signs that allowed a traveling journeyman to prove his legitimacy to potential employers. The final stage was master craftsman, achieved by creating a masterpiece, a work demonstrating complete mastery of the craft's techniques. But becoming a master wasn't just about skill. You needed capital to set up a workshop, connections to obtain guild membership, and often you needed to marry into a guild family. The guilds carefully controlled the number of masters to prevent oversupply and maintain each member's livelihood. Now here's where it gets interesting from our perspective. These guilds developed elaborate rituals, secret signs, and protected knowledge that made them function much like secret societies. The technical knowledge of a craft, the exact recipes for dyes, the tricks for working particular metals, the methods for creating certain effects, was closely guarded intellectual property. An outsider who learned these secrets illegally could be prosecuted. In some cases, revealing trade secrets was punishable by death. But the guilds went beyond merely protecting technical knowledge. They developed moral and spiritual dimensions, viewing their crafts as paths to virtue and relationship with the divine. This was especially true of the stonemasons, whose work building cathedrals seemed to literally reach toward heaven. The stonemason guilds, or lodges, as they were called, from the wooden structures built against cathedral walls where masons worked during construction, developed particularly rich traditions. These mason lodges were unusual because they had to be mobile. Unlike other craftsmen who stayed in one town, cathedral builders moved from project to project, sometimes working on a single building for decades before moving to the next. This required systems for recognizing qualified masons and protecting the specialized knowledge of cathedral construction. Geometry, engineering, stone properties. That made such ambitious buildings possible. The masons developed secret grips and passwords that allowed an unknown mason arriving at a work site to prove his qualifications. They had legends and symbolic teachings passed down orally from master to apprentice. They spoke of ancient master builders. Solomon's Temple was a favorite reference, and saw their work as continuation of sacred traditions stretching back to biblical times. Working on cathedrals wasn't just construction. It was participating in creating physical representations of divine order. The mathematical proportions, the play of light through stained glass, the soaring heights that drew the eye and spirit upward, all were calculated to produce spiritual effects. The Masons saw themselves as translating divine harmony into stone, and their knowledge of geometry and proportion was treated as sacred science. Alchemists formed another medieval guild, though a stranger one. Alchemy was the attempt to transform base metals into gold, discover the elixir of life, and understand matter's fundamental nature. But it was also a symbolic practice, with the transformation of metals representing spiritual transformation of the alchemist. Their writings were deliberately obscure, filled with symbols and coded language that protected their knowledge while hinting at deeper meanings. The alchemical tradition created a rich symbolic vocabulary. The philosopher's stone, the Ouroboros, snake eating its tail, the union of sun and moon, that later secret societies would adopt and reinterpret. Alchemists worked in isolation or small groups, sharing discoveries through carefully coded manuscripts. Their blend of practical chemistry and mystical philosophy created a kind of secret society without formal organization, united by shared symbolic language and common pursuits. The medieval period also saw religious secret societies emerge from necessity. During times of heresy persecutions, various dissident Christian groups had to practice in secret. The Cathars in southern France, the Waldensians in the Alps, and other groups maintained hidden networks of believers, secret meeting places, and coded ways of recognizing each other. These weren't secret societies by choice, but by survival necessity. Public practice of their beliefs meant torture and death. The Knights Templar, which we'll explore more deeply in the next chapter, represented a unique fusion. A military religious order with banking operations and secret rituals, approved by the church yet maintaining internal mysteries. They built on both monastic traditions and military hierarchies, creating something unprecedented. What united all these medieval secret-keeping groups was the understanding that knowledge had value precisely because it was restricted. Whether craft secrets that gave economic advantage, mystical wisdom that promised spiritual transformation, or dangerous religious ideas that challenged orthodoxy, knowledge was power, and power was controlled by controlling who knew what. The medieval world was organized around hierarchies and boundaries. Between clergy and laity, nobles and commoners, masters and apprentices, insiders and outsiders. Secret societies fit naturally into this worldview. They weren't challenging the hierarchical principle itself, just creating alternate hierarchies based on knowledge and skill rather than birth. A peasant's son could potentially become a master craftsman, even though he could never become a noble. This made guilds important channels for social mobility in an otherwise rigid society. The legacy of medieval guilds would prove enormously important. When Freemasonry emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries, it explicitly modeled itself on the stonemason lodges, adopting their terminology, symbolism, and organizational structures. The idea of knowledge transmitted through degrees of initiation, the use of architectural symbolism for moral teaching, the concept of building better individuals and societies, all came from the medieval Mason tradition. Even today, we see echoes of medieval guilds in professional organizations that require years of training, maintain ethical standards, and protect specialized knowledge. Medical societies, bar associations, and academic institutions all descended, in a sense, from the medieval guild model. The progression from student to practitioner to master, the idea that knowledge should be guarded until one is ready for it, the sense of belonging to a tradition larger than oneself. These medieval innovations shaped how we still think about professional expertise and community. Few secret societies have captured human imagination quite like the Knights Templar. Their story has everything: warrior monks with secret rituals, vast wealth and mysterious banking operations, a sudden and violent downfall, and legends of hidden treasures that persist to this day. But separating historical reality from romantic fantasy requires careful attention, because the Templars have become a screen onto which people project every imaginable conspiracy theory. The Templars were founded around 1119 in Jerusalem, shortly after the First Crusade had captured the Holy Land from Muslim control. A French knight named Hugues de Payens and 8 companions took monastic vows: poverty, chastity, obedience, while also dedicating themselves to protecting Christian pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem. They were warrior monks, an unusual concept that combined 2 roles normally kept separate in medieval society. King Baldwin II of Jerusalem gave them headquarters on the Temple Mount, in what was believed to be Solomon's temple ruins, and from this they took their name. The poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, or Knights Templar. This location would fuel centuries of speculation about what they might have found there, what ancient secrets might have been hidden in those ruins. The Templars grew rapidly with support from Bernard of Clairvaux, one of medieval Christianity's most influential figures. Bernard wrote their rule, organized around Benedictine monastic principles, but adapted for military life. Bernard also preached the Second Crusade, lending his immense prestige to the Templar cause. With church approval and Bernard's advocacy, donations poured in. Land, money, and noble sons seeking to serve God through holy war. Within decades, the Templars became an international organization with properties across Europe and the Middle East. They developed a structure with local commanderies feeding resources to regional preceptories, ultimately supporting their military operations in the Holy Land. Knights took vows and underwent initiation ceremonies, creating bonds of brotherhood and shared purpose. They wore distinctive white mantles with red crosses, instantly recognizable symbols of their order. But here's where the Templar story becomes fascinating from a secret society perspective. They developed initiation rituals that were kept strictly private. These ceremonies apparently involved symbolic acts and oaths that were meant only for members. This secrecy, while not unusual for a religious order, would later be used against them. When powerful enemies wanted to destroy the Templars, these secret rituals provided ammunition for accusations of heresy. The Templars also became medieval banking pioneers. Pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land faced a dangerous problem. Carrying money made them targets for bandits. The Templars developed a solution. Deposit money at a Templar house in Europe, receive a coded document, then withdraw equivalent funds at a Templar house in Jerusalem. This early form of banking, along with money lending to nobles and even kings, made the Templars immensely wealthy and influential. Their military reputation was formidable. Templar knights took vows never to retreat unless outnumbered 3-1, and even then, only with their commander's permission. They fought in nearly every major Crusader battle, often forming the vanguard or rear guard, the most dangerous positions. Their discipline and courage became legendary, making them the most feared Crusader warriors from the Muslim perspective. For nearly 2 centuries, the Templars thrived, but the Crusades were failing. After the fall of Acre in 1291, the last Crusader stronghold, the military orders lost their primary purpose. The Templars retreated to Cyprus, planning for future crusades that never came. Without their role as Holy Land defenders, their vast wealth and independence began to seem threatening rather than useful to European rulers. Enter King Philip IV of France, known as Philip the Fair. By 1307, Philip was desperately in debt, partly to the Templars themselves. He'd already expelled Jews and seized their property, debased the currency, and arrested Italian bankers. Now, he turned his attention to the wealthy Templars, but he needed a pretext that would allow him to seize their wealth while appearing righteous rather than greedy. What happened next has become one of history's most infamous coordinated attacks. On Friday, October 13, 1307, giving rise to superstitions about Friday the 13th, Philip's agents arrested Templars throughout France simultaneously. The charges were shocking: denying Christ, spitting on the cross, worshipping a mysterious head or idol called Baphomet, and engaging in obscene rituals during secret initiation ceremonies. Under torture, medieval interrogation was brutal. Many Templars confessed to these charges. Some later recanted when removed from torture, saying they'd confessed falsely to stop the pain. The confessions were contradictory and bizarre, suggesting they were either fabricated by interrogators or extracted through leading questions from men who would say anything to end their suffering. The trial dragged on for years, involving Pope Clement V, who was under Philip's political influence and causing scandal throughout Christendom. The Templar Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, initially confessed under torture, but later publicly recanted, declaring the order's innocence. Many Templars showed remarkable courage, defending their order despite knowing it meant death. In 1312, Pope Clement officially dissolved the order, though not by declaring them guilty. He used administrative language suggesting it was no longer viable to continue them given the scandal. This careful wording left open the question of their actual guilt. In 1314, Jacques de Molay and other Templar leaders were burned at stake in Paris. According to legend, de Molay cursed Philip and Clement from the flames, predicting they would join him before God within the year. Eerily, both Philip and Clement died within months, though whether from natural causes or the power of suggestion, we'll never know. The Templar property was theoretically transferred to the Knights Hospitaller, another military order, but much of it was seized by various European rulers. Philip got the French assets he'd been seeking. In other countries, the suppression was less thorough. In Portugal, Templars simply reformed under a new name. In Scotland and Spain, many Templars were found innocent. The order's end was messy, inconsistent, and driven more by politics than evidence. So what's the historical verdict? Most modern historians believe the Templars were destroyed for their wealth, not their sins. The charges seem to have been fabricated or wildly exaggerated. The secret rituals that were used against them were probably no more heretical than other religious orders' private ceremonies. Perhaps unusual by modern standards, but not the devil worship described in the accusations. But here's where the Templar story transcends mere history and enters the realm of legend and secret society mythology. Almost immediately, stories began circulating about Templar treasures that escaped Philip's grasp. What happened to their legendary wealth? What secrets did they take to their graves? What knowledge did they discover in Solomon's temple? These questions would haunt imaginations for centuries. By the 18th and 19th centuries, various groups claimed descent from or connection to the Templars. Some branches of Freemasonry incorporated Templar symbolism and mythology, creating Templar degrees that claimed to preserve ancient wisdom. Occult societies suggested the Templars had discovered sacred geometry, mystical knowledge, or even the Holy Grail itself. Each generation has reimagined the Templars according to its own fascinations and fears. Modern popular culture has embraced Templars enthusiastically. They've become stars of novels, movies, and video games, usually portrayed as guardians of ancient secrets or heroes fighting shadowy enemies. The actual historical Templars, devout medieval warriors serving what they believed was God's will in a brutal time, have been transformed into symbols for whatever contemporary audiences find mysterious and appealing. The Templar story illustrates an important point about secret societies. The legend often becomes more powerful than the reality. The historical Templars existed for about 200 years and then were destroyed. But the legendary Templars have existed for over 700 years and show no signs of fading. They've become an archetype, the ancient order with hidden knowledge, destroyed by corrupt authorities, leaving clues for worthy seekers to find. Every conspiracy theory about secret societies running the world contains some DNA from the Templar myth. What the Templars did accomplish, beyond their historical deeds, was to demonstrate the power of secrecy to create lasting mystery. If their rituals had been public, there'd be no speculation. If their wealth's fate had been clearly documented, there'd be no treasure legends. The gaps in the historical record became spaces for imagination to flourish. And in those spaces, the Templars transformed from a medieval military order into an eternal symbol of secret knowledge and hidden power. Of all secret societies in history, none has been more influential, more visible, or more misunderstood than Freemasonry. This organization, which emerged in the 17th and 18th centuries, would count among its members some of history's most famous figures: George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Mark Twain, Winston Churchill, and countless others. Yet it remains mysterious to outsiders, its rituals and symbols the subject of endless speculation and conspiracy theories. The origins of Freemasonry are somewhat murky, which is ironic for an organization so obsessed with its own history. The traditional story traces Masonic roots to the medieval stonemason guilds we discussed earlier, particularly those in Scotland and England. These guilds, or lodges, protected the secrets of their craft and created bonds among master masons through shared knowledge and rituals. The transition from operative masonry, actual stonemasons building actual buildings, to speculative masonry, men using Masonic symbolism for moral and philosophical purposes, happened gradually in the 16th and 17th centuries. Lodges began accepting members who weren't working stonemasons, but were interested in the philosophical and symbolic aspects of the craft. These gentlemen masons, or accepted masons, eventually outnumbered actual craftsmen. The crucial date in Masonic history is 1717, when 4 London lodges united to form the Grand Lodge of England, the first formal Masonic organization. This moment transformed Freemasonry from scattered local practices into an organized movement with standardized rituals and a system for recognizing legitimate lodges. The Grand Lodge approach spread rapidly. Ireland established one in 1725, Scotland in 1736, and soon lodges appeared across Europe and the Americas. So what exactly do Freemasons do? The core of Masonry involves a series of degree rituals, ceremonies that convey moral lessons through symbolic drama. The first 3 degrees are standard across most Masonic systems: entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. Each involves ritual theater where candidates experience symbolic events meant to teach virtues like integrity, charity, and self-improvement. The Master Mason degree centers on the legend of Hiram Abiff, supposedly the architect of Solomon's Temple. In the ritual drama, Hiram is murdered by 3 workers who demand secret knowledge they haven't earned. Hiram refuses, even facing death, to betray his trust. The candidate symbolically experiences Hiram's death and raising, learning lessons about loyalty, integrity, and the immortality of the soul. It's powerful theater that creates strong emotional bonds among those who have experienced it together. Masonic symbolism draws heavily from architecture and geometry. The square and compasses, Masonry's most recognizable symbol, represent moral principles. The square symbolizes virtue and fairness in dealings with others, while the compasses represent self-control and staying within proper bounds. The letter G, often displayed between them, stands for God, sometimes called the great architect of the universe in Masonic language, and also for geometry, the divine science. Other symbols include working tools: the gavel for shaping oneself morally, the plumb line for upright conduct, the level for equality among members. Masonic lodges are arranged symbolically, with the worshipful master, the lodge leader, seated in the east where the sun rises, representing enlightenment. The layout references Solomon's Temple, with 2 pillars at the entrance named Jachin and Bows. Every physical element carries symbolic meaning meant to prompt moral reflection. The Masonic ideal emphasized enlightenment values: reason, education, tolerance, and human improvement. Lodges brought together men from different social classes and professions who might never interact otherwise. A merchant, a lawyer, a craftsman, and a nobleman could meet as equals on the lodge floor, all wearing the same simple aprons, all addressed as brother. This was revolutionary in hierarchical 18th century society. Freemasonry spread like wildfire through the Atlantic world in the 18th century. Lodges appeared in colonial America as early as the 1730s. Military lodges traveled with British regiments. Merchant lodges formed in port cities. By the time of the American Revolution, Freemasonry had become a major social force in the colonies. The connection between Freemasonry and the American Revolution is significant, though often exaggerated. Many revolutionary leaders were Masons: Washington, Franklin, Paul Revere, John Hancock, and others. Masonic ideals about liberty, equality, and enlightenment aligned with revolutionary principles. The fraternal bonds between Masons across colonial boundaries may have facilitated revolutionary coordination. But Masonry itself didn't cause the revolution, and plenty of loyalists were Masons too. George Washington's Masonic connections are well documented. He joined the lodge in Fredericksburg, Virginia, as a young man and remained an active Mason throughout his life. The famous painting of Washington in Masonic regalia, laying the Capitol building's cornerstone, captures the symbolic importance Americans placed on the Masonic connection to their new nation. Many early American political institutions borrowed Masonic organizational principles. In France, Masonic lodges became centers of Enlightenment thought and, eventually, revolutionary fervor. French Masonry was more philosophically radical than its British counterpart, embracing ideas about reason, progress, and human rights that would fuel the French Revolution. Prominent revolutionaries like Marquis de Lafayette and Georges Danton were Masons, though so were members of the old regime. The Revolution's ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity, echoed Masonic principles. But Freemasonry's success also brought opposition. The Catholic Church issued multiple papal bulls condemning Masonry, concerned about its secrecy, its oaths, and its Enlightenment philosophy. In Catholic countries, Masons sometimes faced persecution. The Church's opposition would continue into the 20th century, only relaxing significantly after Vatican II in the 1960s. Political opponents attacked Masonry too. After a scandal in 1820s America involving the disappearance and presumed murder of William Morgan, who had threatened to publish Masonic secrets, an entire anti-Masonic political party formed. This anti-Masonic party, the first third party in American politics, claimed that Masonic loyalty undermined democratic accountability. While the party faded quickly, it demonstrated the tension between secret societies and democratic transparency. As Freemasonry matured, it spawned additional degrees and associated orders. The Scottish Rite developed an elaborate system of 33 degrees, each with its own ritual and philosophical lesson. The York Rite created another series of degrees culminating in Knights Templar symbolism. The Shriners, officially the ancient Arabic order of the nobles of the mystic shrine, added a more social dimension with their distinctive fezzes and philanthropic focus, particularly children's hospitals. Masonic charitable work became increasingly important. Lodges supported widows and orphans of deceased members, funded schools, and contributed to community projects. The Masonic home movement created residences for aging Masons and their families. This charitable emphasis helped maintain Masonry's reputation and social relevance, even as some of its intellectual appeal faded. Women's relationship to Freemasonry has been complex. Traditional Masonry admitted only men, but women's Masonic-inspired organizations emerged. The Order of the Eastern Star, founded in 1850, allowed both men and women, but required male members to be Masons. Co-Masonry or Continental Freemasonry, which began in France, initiated women and men equally, though these lodges aren't recognized by mainstream Masonic bodies. This gender exclusivity has become increasingly controversial in modern times. African American Freemasonry developed its own tradition through Prince Hall Masonry, founded by Prince Hall in 1784. When mainstream lodges wouldn't accept black members, Prince Hall and other free black men in Boston received a charter from British Masonry and established their own lodge tradition. Prince Hall Masonry grew into a major African American institution, providing community leadership, civil rights advocacy, and social support when other institutions excluded Black Americans. Today, Prince Hall Masonry remains a significant African American organization, though relationships with mainstream Masonry have improved over time. By the late 19th century, Freemasonry had spread globally. British colonialism brought lodges to India, Africa, and elsewhere. Each region adapted Masonry to local circumstances while maintaining core rituals and principles. This created a worldwide network of lodges where traveling Masons could find fellowship and recognition through shared passwords and signs. The 20th century brought challenges. 2 world wars disrupted Masonry in Europe. The Nazis suppressed Masonic lodges, viewing them as enemies of the state. Communist regimes banned Freemasonry as a bourgeois institution. Membership began declining in many countries, as social clubs and fraternal organizations generally lost appeal to newer generations. Modern Freemasonry faces the challenge of relevance. What purpose does it serve in 21st century society? The charitable work continues, and many men still value the ritual, fellowship, and moral teachings. Some lodges have modernized, while others maintain traditional practices. The secrecy that once attracted members sometimes now repels them, as contemporary culture values transparency differently than the 18th century did. Despite challenges, Freemasonry remains the largest and most established secret society in the world, with millions of members across thousands of lodges. It influenced the development of countless other organizations. Service clubs like Rotary and Lions borrowed organizational models from Masonry, as did labor unions and professional associations. The very concept of an organization based on degree systems, symbolic rituals, and brotherhood owes much to the Masonic model. Understanding Freemasonry requires holding 2 ideas simultaneously. It's both less and more than its reputation suggests. Less in that it's not the world-controlling conspiracy that some imagine. It's mostly middle-aged men having dinner meetings and performing rituals that promote personal virtue. More in that it genuinely did help spread Enlightenment ideals, create social networks that transcended class boundaries, and model organizational forms that countless other groups would adopt. It's neither omnipotent conspiracy nor meaningless social club, but something more nuanced and historically significant. Perhaps no secret society name conjures more immediate recognition or more confused ideas than the Illuminati. Mentioned in countless conspiracy theories, hip-hop lyrics, and internet memes, the Illuminati have become shorthand for any supposed shadowy group controlling world events. But the actual historical Illuminati were quite different from their reputation, and their real story is fascinating precisely because it reveals the gap between reality and myth. The Illuminati, properly called the Order of the Illuminati or Illuminati of Bavaria, were founded on May 1, 1776 by Adam Weishaupt, a professor of canon law at the University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria. The timing is ironic, as this was the same year America declared independence with ideals the Illuminati would share: reason, liberty, and opposition to tyranny. Weishaupt was a product of Enlightenment thinking, educated by Jesuits but gradually alienated from church orthodoxy. He believed society was held back by superstition and the church's political power, and that humanity could achieve perfection through reason and education. His vision was to create an elite society of enlightened individuals who would work to gradually transform society from within, promoting rationality, secularism, and moral improvement. The structure of the Illuminati borrowed from Freemasonry but adapted it for more radical purposes. Weishaupt created a hierarchy of degrees, each revealing more of the organization's goals and philosophy. New members entered knowing little about the organization's true aims, which were revealed gradually as they proved trustworthy and advanced through the ranks. The highest levels of the order knew the ultimate goal: to replace existing political and religious structures with a new society based on reason. Members took classical pseudonyms. Weishaupt was Spartacus, others were Cato, Brutus, and so on, reinforcing their identity as heirs to Republican Rome rather than subjects of monarchical Europe. Internal communications used code names and ciphers to maintain secrecy. The organization divided territories into regions and circles, creating an expanding network structure. The Illuminati recruited carefully, targeting influential young men in positions to shape society. Professors, students, lawyers, merchants, and members of the clergy. They particularly focused on Freemasons, attempting to infiltrate Masonic lodges and convert members to Illuminati ideals. By the mid-1780s, they claimed several thousand members across Germany and into Austria, France, and Italy. What made the Illuminati different from philosophical discussion clubs or Masonic lodges was their political program. They actively worked to influence society, placing members in positions of power, shaping public opinion, and advancing Enlightenment reforms. This wasn't just intellectual discussion, but practical political action toward revolutionary goals. In conservative, Catholic Bavaria, this was genuinely dangerous. The Illuminati's downfall came swiftly. In 1784, Duke Karl Theodor of Bavaria, pressured by the Catholic Church, issued an edict banning all secret societies. The Illuminati tried to continue underground, but Bavarian authorities seized documents, interrogated members, and published confiscated papers to expose the organization. These documents revealed the Illuminati's anti-monarchical and anti-clerical goals, causing scandal across Europe. By 1787, continued suppression had effectively destroyed the organization. Weishaupt fled Bavaria, taking refuge in Gotha, where he lived the rest of his life in relative obscurity, writing philosophical works and defending his ideas. The Illuminati had existed for barely a decade, never grew larger than a few thousand members concentrated in German-speaking lands, and were thoroughly suppressed before achieving any significant political goals. So that's the actual history. A short-lived Enlightenment secret society in late 18th century Bavaria that dreamed of transforming society, but was crushed by authorities and disappeared by 1790. Why then does the name Illuminati still resonate so powerfully over 200 years later? The myth-making began almost immediately. Conservative writers, horrified by the French Revolution, blamed secret societies for the violence and upheaval. In 1797, Augustin Barruel published a book arguing that the French Revolution was orchestrated by a conspiracy involving Freemasons, Illuminati, and other secret societies. Similarly, John Robinson's Proofs of a Conspiracy claimed the Illuminati survived and were working to destroy all governments and religions. These books were wildly successful, tapping into fears about revolutionary change and secret manipulation. They established a narrative template that would be recycled endlessly. Shadowy illuminated ones, working in secret to control events, overthrowing legitimate authority, and advancing evil plans for world domination. Never mind that the actual Illuminati were scattered, suppressed, and powerless. The myth was more compelling than reality. The Illuminati myth went dormant during the 19th century, occasionally mentioned but not central to conspiracy thinking. It roared back in the 20th century, particularly in America after the 1960s. The John Birch Society and other right-wing groups revived claims about Illuminati influence. But the real explosion came through popular culture. Robert Anton Wilson and Robert Shee's satirical The Illuminatus trilogy, published in the 1970s, playfully embraced conspiracy theories, mixing Illuminati mythology with every other conspiracy concept. The books were intentionally absurd, suggesting that believing too seriously in any conspiracy was itself a trap. But many readers missed the satire, taking the fictional conspiracies as revelations of hidden truth. The 1980s and 90s saw Illuminati conspiracy theories merge with other strands. New World Order fears, concern about globalism, and later, internet culture. The Illuminati became a catch-all explanation for anything unexplained or troubling. Music industry success, Illuminati connections, political events, Illuminati manipulation, celebrity deaths, Illuminati sacrifice. The theory became unfalsifiable. Any evidence against it was explained as part of the cover-up. The internet age supercharged Illuminati conspiracy theories. YouTube videos exposing Illuminati symbolism in music videos gathered millions of views. Forums dissected hand gestures and fashion choices for hidden meanings. The triangle hand symbol, the all-seeing eye pyramid imagery, all became proof of Illuminati membership, despite these being generic symbols used in countless contexts. Hip-hop culture embraced and played with Illuminati imagery, sometimes seriously, often ironically. Artists dropped Illuminati references in lyrics, wore symbolic jewelry, and incorporated mystical imagery into performances, sometimes making genuine spiritual statements, sometimes just courting controversy and publicity. This created a feedback loop where conspiracy theorists took artistic choices as confirmation, while artists gained notoriety from the speculation. Modern Illuminati conspiracy theories reveal more about contemporary anxieties than historical truth. They express unease about power concentration, globalization, and cultural change. They offer simple explanations for complex events. Rather than wrestling with economics, history, and politics, one can blame a secret group. They provide a sense of hidden knowledge, making believers feel they understand what others miss. Psychologically, conspiracy theories serve several functions. They reduce uncertainty by providing clear explanations. They give purpose by identifying enemies to oppose. They create community among believers who share special knowledge. And they preserve worldviews by explaining away contradictory evidence. If the Illuminati control everything, then any challenge to the theory can be dismissed as disinformation. The irony is that the historical Illuminati, had they succeeded, would have created a more transparent society with less concentrated power. The opposite of what modern conspiracy theories claim. Weishaupt's vision was Enlightenment idealism, education, reason, and merit replacing hereditary privilege and religious authority. These were radical ideas in 1776, but they're the foundational principles of modern democratic society. Real power concentration and secretive decision-making do exist, of course. In corporate boardrooms, intelligence agencies, and elite gatherings like Davos, but these operate through documented structures and clear interests rather than ancient mystical conspiracies. Understanding real power dynamics requires studying economics, political science, and history, which is harder than blaming a mythical Illuminati. The Illuminati story teaches us something important about secret societies and human psychology. A group that existed for barely a decade over 200 years ago has become immortal precisely because it failed and disappeared, leaving gaps for imagination to fill. If the Illuminati had succeeded and openly ruled, or if they'd never existed at all, they'd be forgotten. But existing briefly, dreaming grandly, then vanishing mysteriously, that created the perfect conditions for endless speculation. The lesson here is that sometimes the myth of a secret society is more powerful than any real secret society could be. The actual Illuminati were provincial German intellectuals with Enlightenment ideals. The mythical Illuminati are omnipotent puppet masters controlling world events. Reality is messy, limited, and ultimately disappointing to those craving simple answers. Myth is clean, unlimited, and endlessly adaptable to whatever people need it to explain. When you hear Illuminati today, you're almost never hearing about Weishaupt's 18th century society. You're hearing an archetypal myth about secret power, hidden knowledge, and shadowy control. a myth that says more about contemporary fears and desires than about historical reality. And perhaps that's the real secret. Secret societies often matter more as symbols and myths than as actual organizations. While political secret societies like the Illuminati work to change earthly power structures, another tradition of secret societies focused on internal transformation and mystical knowledge. These esoteric orders claimed access to ancient wisdom traditions, promising members spiritual enlightenment and hidden understanding of the universe's fundamental laws. Among these, the Rosicrucians created one of history's most intriguing mysteries. The Rosicrucian story begins strangely, with anonymous manifestos appearing in early 17th century Germany claiming an invisible society of enlightened adepts existed. The first, Fama Fraternitatis, 1614, told of Christian Rosicrucians, supposedly a German nobleman who traveled to the Middle East in the 1400s, learned secret wisdom from Arabian and Egyptian teachers, then returned to Germany to found a brotherhood dedicated to healing, wisdom, and reforming Europe. The manifestos described this brotherhood as invisible, working secretly to guide humanity toward truth and enlightenment. They claimed to possess the secrets of alchemy, medicine, and mystical knowledge. They invited worthy seekers to join them, though provided no clear way to make contact. A second manifesto, Confessio Fraternitatis, 1615, appeared with similar themes, followed by The Chemical Wedding of Christian Rosicrucians, 1616, an alchemical allegory dense with symbolic imagery. These documents caused a sensation in early 17th century Europe. Hundreds of people wrote responses, some skeptical, many hopeful, seeking the mysterious brotherhood or claiming to be members. But no one could find the actual organization. Letters addressed to Rosicrucians went unanswered. No members came forward. The whole thing might have been an elaborate hoax or a symbolic allegory never meant as literal truth. The mystery of whether the Rosicrucians ever actually existed in the 17th century remains unsolved. Most historians believe the manifestos were written by a circle of Lutheran intellectuals, possibly including Johann Valentin Andri, who later suggested it was all a ludibrium, a playful fiction. But the manifestos struck such a chord that people wanted Rosicrucianism to exist, and eventually it did, as various groups adopted the name and claimed connection to the legendary brotherhood. What made Rosicrucianism so appealing? It combined several elements that attracted 17th century seekers. First, it promised access to ancient wisdom supposedly predating Christianity, Egyptian, Greek, and Islamic knowledge preserved by secret lineages. Second, it offered practical benefits through alchemy and medicine, suggesting members could achieve both spiritual enlightenment and physical well-being. Third, it was Protestant-friendly but mystical, appealing to those who wanted spirituality beyond Orthodox religion without returning to Catholicism. The Rosicrucian manifestos appeared during a crucial period, the beginning of the 30 Years' War, a devastating religious conflict that would ravage Germany. The manifestos call for universal reformation, their vision of learned societies working peacefully for human betterment, resonated with people desperate for alternatives to religious violence. They offered hope that secret wisdom might heal the wounds that open warfare could only worsen. By the 18th century, various groups claimed Rosicrucian heritage. Some Masonic orders incorporated Rosicrucian degrees. Secret societies in France and Germany adopted Rosicrucian symbolism. Each claimed to preserve the original brotherhood's secrets, though they taught different things and often contradicted each other. Rosicrucianism became less a specific organization than a style of mystical thinking, esoteric, alchemical, focused on hidden correspondences between spiritual and material worlds. The 19th century saw a Rosicrucian revival alongside broader interest in occultism and alternative spirituality. Organizations like the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, founded 1865, brought Rosicrucian themes into British Masonry. These groups studied Kabbalah, alchemy, and ceremonial magic, creating elaborate systems of correspondence between symbols, planets, elements, and spiritual principles. The most influential esoteric secret society of the late 19th century was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, founded in London in 1888. The Golden Dawn claimed Rosicrucian roots, but was actually something new. A comprehensive magical system combining Kabbalah, astrology, tarot, geomancy, and ceremonial magic into a structured curriculum taught through initiatory degrees. The Golden Dawn's founding story involved mysterious cipher manuscripts supposedly containing ancient magical knowledge. 3 Freemasons, William Wynne Westcott, Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, and William Robert Woodman, claimed to have decoded these manuscripts and contacted a German Rosicrucian adept named Anna Sprengel, who authorized them to establish a Golden Dawn temple in England. The cipher manuscripts were real, but the German adept was probably fictional. The founders invented her to give their new order legitimacy. Despite its dubious origins, the Golden Dawn created something genuinely impressive: a sophisticated system of magical training that influenced Western esotericism for over a century. Members progressed through grades corresponding to the Kabbalistic tree of life, learning magical theory and practice at each level. Lower grades studied basic correspondences and symbolism. Higher grades performed elaborate rituals intended to achieve spiritual transformation and communicate with divine forces. The Golden Dawn attracted some remarkable people. William Butler Yeats, who would win the Nobel Prize for Literature, was an active member who incorporated Golden Dawn symbolism into his poetry. Arthur Machen, the horror writer, was a member. Florence Farr, a prominent actress and feminist, became a leader in the order. Aleister Crowley, who would become the 20th century's most famous occultist, joined in 1898. But internal conflicts plagued the Golden Dawn. Aleister Crowley's personality caused friction. He was brilliant but arrogant and prone to scandals. Mathers became increasingly autocratic and paranoid. By 1900, the original Golden Dawn had splintered into competing groups, each claiming to preserve the true tradition. These schisms ironically mirrored conflicts in the Christian church that occultists often criticized. Crowley went on to found his own magical order, the Therefore Argenteum Astrum or Silver Star, and later the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, which combined sex magic with ceremonial magic. Crowley developed his own system called the Lemma, centered on the principle, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." Often misunderstood as selfish hedonism, but meant as discovering and following one's true will or destiny. Crowley remains controversial, celebrated by some as a magical pioneer and dismissed by others as a charlatan and narcissist. Other Hermetic orders emerged throughout the 20th century. The Builders of the Adytum, BOTA, founded by Paul Foster Case, focused on tarot and Kabbalah. The Servants of the Light, SOL, established by W.E. Butler and Dolores Ashcroft Nowicki, taught Western mystery tradition through correspondence courses. These groups made esoteric knowledge more accessible while maintaining initiatory structures and degree systems. What united these Hermetic and Rosicrucian orders was their approach to knowledge. Unlike religious faith that accepted doctrine on authority, these groups promised direct experience of spiritual realities through magical practice. Unlike scientific rationalism that dismissed the spiritual as illusion, they insisted that consciousness could be trained to perceive and manipulate subtle forces. They sought a middle path, using systematic methods to explore subjective experience, applying experimental attitudes to mystical practice. The symbolism these orders used was dense and multi-layered. The rose cross itself. A rose blooming on a cross combined Christian symbolism with pagan flower worship, suggesting divine love flowering through sacrifice and transformation. Alchemical symbols referred both to laboratory processes and spiritual development. Kabbalistic diagrams mapped both cosmic structure and human consciousness. Tarot cards were seen as keys to universal wisdom encoded in imagery. Critics, both then and now, dismissed these orders as deluded people playing dress-up and pretending their rituals had power. Supporters argue they developed sophisticated psychological techniques before modern psychology existed, creating transformative experiences through symbol, ritual, and altered states of consciousness. The truth probably lies somewhere between. These were serious attempts to explore consciousness and meaning, even if their supernatural claims weren't literally true. The influence of these Hermetic orders on Western culture extends beyond their small membership. Carl Jung studied alchemy and drew heavily on Hermetic concepts for his psychology. Surrealist artists incorporated magical symbolism. Counterculture figures like Timothy Leary explicitly connected psychedelic experience to Hermetic initiation. Contemporary Wicca and neo-pagan movements borrowed organizational structures and ritual techniques from golden, dawn-descended traditions. Modern Rosicrucian and Hermetic orders continue to exist, some maintaining the elaborate degree systems and rituals of their predecessors, others adapting to contemporary sensibilities. The ancient mystical order Rosicrucians, AMORC, founded in 1915, offers correspondence courses in Rosicrucian philosophy. The Rosicrucian Fellowship, established in 1909, combines astrology with Christian mysticism. These groups exist openly rather than secretly, though they maintain private teachings for initiated members. What's perhaps most interesting about Rosicrucian and Hermetic orders is what they reveal about human hunger for transcendence and meaning. In an increasingly secular age, these organizations offered alternatives to both religious orthodoxy and materialist reductionism. They promised that consciousness was primary, that symbols contained power, that individual transformation was possible through disciplined practice. Whether their specific techniques worked in supernatural terms, they clearly provided meaning, community, and transformative experiences for countless seekers. The Rosicrucian mystery, did they ever really exist, captures something essential about secret societies. Sometimes the idea of a society is more important than the society itself. The invisible brotherhood of enlightened adepts, whether historical fact or inspired fiction, represented an ideal that people could aspire toward and organize themselves around. In this sense, Rosicrucianism was real because people made it real by creating actual organizations inspired by the manifesto's vision. While mystical orders sought to transform individuals spiritually, political secret societies worked to transform societies structurally. Throughout the 18th and 19th centuries, when expressing revolutionary ideas openly could mean imprisonment or death, secret societies became vehicles for political change, their hidden networks helping to topple empires and forge new nations. The Carbonari, literally charcoal burners, emerged in early 19th century Italy as one of the most influential revolutionary secret societies. Their names supposedly referenced charcoal burners who worked in forests, creating a cover story for secret meetings. In reality, they were liberals and nationalists working to unify Italy's fragmented states and establish constitutional government against Austrian domination and autocratic Italian rulers. The Carbonari organized in cells of about 20 members called Vendite, with higher-level Vendite coordinating lower ones. This cellular structure meant that if authorities infiltrated one cell, they couldn't compromise the entire organization. Members used elaborate rituals borrowed from Freemasonry, though with more revolutionary political content. Initiation ceremonies involved symbolic death and rebirth, binding members to the cause through powerful psychological experiences. At their peak around 1820, the Carbonari may have had hundreds of thousands of members across Italy. They organized revolts in Naples and Piedmont, though these failed due to Austrian military intervention. Giuseppe Mazzini, who would become the philosophical father of Italian unification, began his revolutionary career in the Carbonari before founding his own organization. Young Italy, with similar conspiratorial structures but clearer nationalist ideology. In France, secret societies flourished during the Restoration period after Napoleon's fall. With monarchist governments suppressing liberal and republican ideas, revolutionaries organized in secret. The Society of the Friends of Truth, various Masonic lodges, and eventually explicitly revolutionary groups like the Society of the Rights of Man plotted political change through clandestine networks. These French secret societies played crucial roles in the July Revolution of 1830, which overthrew the reactionary Charles X, and the Revolution of 1848, which briefly established the Second Republic. The famous barricades that Parisians erected during these uprisings were often organized by secret society members who had planned insurrections through their hidden networks. Victor Hugo captured this underground revolutionary world in Les Miserables, with his ABC Society representing the actual conspiratorial groups that operated in early 19th century Paris. In Russia, the Decembrist movement represented aristocratic officers organizing secretly against autocracy. Inspired by liberal ideas encountered during the Napoleonic Wars, these young nobles formed secret societies like the Union of Salvation and the Union of Welfare, debating everything from constitutional monarchy to republican revolution. Their December 1825 uprising in St. Petersburg, refusing to swear allegiance to Nicholas I and demanding constitutional reform, failed spectacularly, leading to executions and Siberian exile. But the Decembrists became martyrs who inspired later Russian revolutionaries. The Russian revolutionary tradition continued through secret societies. The People's Will, a radical group in the 1870s and 80s, pioneered modern terrorist tactics in their campaign against Tsar Alexander II, finally assassinating him in 1881. These tactics and organizational structures influenced later revolutionaries, including Lenin and the Bolsheviks, who combined public political work with secretive underground cells. China's revolutionary secret societies had even deeper roots. The Triads, or Heaven and Earth Society, originated in the 17th century among Ming Dynasty loyalists resisting Qing rule. Over centuries, they evolved into mutual aid organizations, criminal networks, and revolutionary conspiracies. The White Lotus Society led peasant rebellions against oppressive rule. The Boxers, properly the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists, fought against foreign imperialism in the Boxer Rebellion of 1900, though their mystical beliefs, they thought they were bulletproof, proved tragically misguided. Sun Yat-sen, who would overthrow the Qing dynasty and become modern China's founding father, organized revolution through secret societies. His revived China Society and later, the Revolutionary Alliance combined traditional secret society structures with modern political organization, creating networks across China and among overseas Chinese communities. The 1911 revolution that ended imperial rule and established the Chinese Republic succeeded partly through these underground revolutionary connections. In Ireland, various secret societies resisted British rule. The Society of United Irishmen in the 1790s, inspired by American and French revolutions, organized both Protestant and Catholic Irish for independence. Though their 1798 rebellion failed, they established patterns of underground resistance. Later groups like the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the Fenians, maintained secret networks that eventually contributed to the independence movement, leading to the Irish Free States establishment in 1922. Latin American independence movements also utilized secretive organizing. Simón Bolívar, before openly leading armies, belonged to Masonic lodges that served as networks for revolutionary planning. These lodges brought together Creole elites, providing spaces to discuss independence ideas and coordinate resistance when Spain tightly controlled public discourse. The Young Turks, formerly the Committee of Union and Progress, represented early 20th century conspiratorial organizing. Turkish army officers and intellectuals formed secret cells to force the Ottoman Sultan to restore the constitution and modernize the empire. Their 1908 revolution succeeded, though the Young Turks' later rule proved autocratic and culminated in the Armenian genocide, showing how revolutionary movements don't necessarily produce better governance than what they replace. These political secret societies shared common features. They all operated under repressive regimes where open opposition was dangerous. They used initiatory rituals to bond members and test loyalty. They organized in cellular structures to limit damage from infiltration. They combined revolutionary ideology with mystical elements, giving members sense of historical mission beyond mere politics. And they all faced the tension between maintaining security through secrecy and building broad support through public outreach. The effectiveness of secret societies as revolutionary vehicles is debatable. They could maintain resistance when open opposition was impossible, preserve ideas during repressive periods, and coordinate actions when the moment came. But secrecy limited their reach. You can't build mass movements if nobody knows you exist. Many revolutionary secret societies succeeded only when they emerged into open politics, building coalitions with moderate reformers and gaining popular support. The legacy of revolutionary secret societies continues to influence political organizing. Communist parties often used similar cellular structures, with disciplined cadres forming the revolutionary vanguard. Anti-colonial movements in the 20th century employed underground networks when facing powerful empires. Even modern activist groups sometimes adopt affinity group structures resembling secret society cells, though usually with less secrecy. What these political secret societies demonstrated was that secrecy could be a weapon of the weak against the strong. When powerful autocracies controlled public space, armies, and police, conspirators needed alternative structures. Secret societies provided organizational models for resistance, ways to build solidarity and coordinate action despite surveillance and repression. They proved that ideas and commitments, not just military force, shaped history, that dedicated groups could sometimes topple seemingly invincible powers. Yet there's a dark side to political secret societies. The same structures that protected revolutionaries from tyrants could protect terrorists from accountability. The oath-bound loyalty that sustained resistance could become authoritarianism within the revolutionary movement. The secrecy that shielded conspirators from police could shield them from public scrutiny and democratic accountability. Many revolutionary secret societies, upon achieving power, became as repressive as the regimes they'd overthrown. The question of whether secret political organizing is compatible with democracy remains unresolved. Democracies ideally allow open political organizing, making secrecy unnecessary. Yet even in democracies, marginalized groups sometimes need protected spaces to organize. The civil rights movement in the American South, for instance, sometimes used secretive planning to protect activists from violent retaliation. Finding the balance between necessary confidentiality and democratic transparency continues to challenge political movements today. The history of secret societies has been overwhelmingly told as men's history. Male lodges, male initiates, male leaders. But women also created their own secret societies, sometimes as parallel structures to men's organizations, sometimes as completely independent traditions. These women's secret societies have been understudied and undervalued. Yet they played crucial roles in women's lives, providing community, mutual support, and spaces for female agency in patriarchal societies. In many traditional societies, women had their own mysteries and initiatory traditions separate from men's. Among various African cultures, women's secret societies managed female initiation rites, teaching young women about sexuality, childbirth, and women's traditional knowledge. The San Society in West Africa, for instance, controlled female circumcision rituals and education, giving elder women authority over an essential sphere of social life. These traditional women's societies weren't just social clubs. They wielded real power within their cultural contexts. They could impose punishments, regulate behavior, and protect women's interests against male encroachment. They passed down practical knowledge about midwifery, herbal medicine, and agriculture, alongside cultural traditions. They created bonds among women across clan and family lines, providing support networks that could intervene in domestic disputes or assist women facing hardship. In medieval and early modern Europe, women's religious orders functioned somewhat like secret societies, creating communities with their own rules, hierarchies, and hidden knowledge. Convents provided educated women with alternatives to marriage, spaces where they could exercise authority and pursue intellectual or spiritual interests. While not exactly secret, these communities maintained internal privacy, with laypeople excluded from certain areas and rituals. As male secret societies like Freemasonry developed in the 18th century, women were explicitly excluded. Traditional Masonry accepted only men, based on arguments about preserving ancient craft guild traditions and maintaining appropriate masculine spaces. But women weren't content to be excluded from the benefits of fraternal organization. The fellowship, moral instruction, and social connections that Masonic membership provided. French Masonry developed adoption lodges in the 18th century, where women could participate in Masonic-style rituals under male sponsorship. These lodges had their own degrees and ceremonies, though women remained subordinate to male authority. Still, adoption lodges gave aristocratic and bourgeois women access to Enlightenment ideas and social networks from which they were otherwise excluded. Some notable women like Josephine Bonaparte were members of adoption lodges. The Order of the Eastern Star, established in America in the mid-19th century, provided a more substantial women's presence in Masonic-related organizing. While technically requiring male Masonic connections, women had to be related to a Master Mason to join. The Eastern Star gave women leadership roles within their organization. Women served as worthy matron alongside male worthy patrons, creating a structure that, while not fully equal, gave women more authority than in many Victorian-era organizations. The Eastern Star developed elaborate degree rituals based on biblical heroines: Ada, Ruth, Esther, Martha, and Electa, each representing virtues like devotion, loyalty, courage, and faith. These rituals provided women with moral instruction and initiatory experiences similar to what men received in Masonic lodges. The organization also gave women opportunities to develop organizational and leadership skills, manage finances, and coordinate charitable projects, experiences often denied to women in broader society. The women's suffrage movement sometimes utilized secret society structures for organizing. The Congressional Union for Woman Suffrage, led by Alice Paul, operated with military-like discipline and secrecy when planning protests and civil disobedience. While not a secret society in the traditional sense, suffragists often needed to meet secretly to avoid harassment and plan actions that would attract police attention. African American women developed their own parallel traditions. The Order of the Golden Circle, the Daughters of Samaria, and other Black women's fraternal organizations provided mutual aid, death benefits, and social connection in communities where both racial discrimination and gender restrictions limited women's opportunities. These organizations operated with similar degree systems and rituals as white women's groups, but served communities often excluded from mainstream fraternal structures. College sororities, which emerged in the late 19th century, adapted secret society structures for young women's education and socialization. The first women's fraternity, as they initially called themselves, Kappa Alpha Theta, was founded at DePaul University in 1870 when male fraternities excluded women. Early sororities used Greek letters, secret rituals, membership pins, and other secret society elements to create bonds among members and distinguish themselves from non-members. These sororities served important functions at a time when higher education for women was new and controversial. They provided support networks, encouraged academic achievement, and created spaces where young women could develop leadership skills. They also replicated some problematic aspects of male fraternities: exclusivity, hazing, and social hierarchies. But they gave women experience with organizational structures and self-governance that prepared many for later public leadership. Women in esoteric and occult movements had more equal participation than in mainstream secret societies. The Theosophical Society, founded in 1875 by Helena Blavatsky and others, accepted women and men equally in its study of ancient wisdom traditions. Blavatsky herself became one of the most influential occult figures of the 19th century, though she faced skepticism and hostility partly because of her gender. The Golden Dawn, discussed in our Esoteric Orders chapter, accepted women from its founding and counted many women among its most influential members. Florence Farr became a leader in the order. Moyna Mathers, MacGregor Mathers' wife, created much of its ritual content, and several women advanced to the highest grades. The Golden Dawn demonstrated that when secret societies focused on spiritual development rather than social networking or political power, women could participate more equally. Dion Fortune, one of the 20th century's most important occultists, founded her own magical order, the Society of the Inner Light, that trained both men and women in Western mystical traditions. Her books on magic, Kabbalah, and esoteric Christianity influenced generations of practitioners. She proved that women could be authorities in esoteric knowledge, writing, teaching, and leading organizations in fields previously dominated by men. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw an explosion of women's clubs and organizations that, while not secret societies per se, borrowed some of their organizational features. Literary societies, professional women's clubs, and civic organizations created networks of educated, active women who worked for social reform, women's rights, and community improvement. These organizations gave middle-class women experience with Robert's rules of order, committee work, and public advocacy, skills essential for later feminist activism. International co-masonry, which began in France in the 1880s, offered full Masonic membership to women and men equally. Annie Besant, the prominent British socialist and theosophist, joined co-masonry and eventually headed the order in Britain, giving legitimacy to women's full participation in Masonic ritual. Though never recognized by mainstream male masonry, co-masonry provided women access to the complete Masonic system rather than the limited adoption lodge experience. Throughout the 20th century, women's presence in secret and fraternal organizations continued evolving. Some formerly male-only organizations began accepting women. The JCs in the 1980s, Rotary and Lions clubs gradually. Traditional women's organizations adapted to changing times, sometimes declining in membership as other opportunities opened to women, sometimes reinventing themselves as service organizations or social networks. Today, many traditional women's secret societies face the same challenges as their male counterparts: declining membership, questions about relevance, and competition from other forms of community and connection. Yet they've left important legacies. They demonstrated that women could create and maintain complex organizations, pass down traditions through generations, and exercise leadership within their own structures, even when denied it in broader society. Understanding women's secret societies requires looking beyond the traditional narrative of secret societies as solely male domains. Women too sought fellowship, moral instruction, mutual aid, and transcendent meaning through organized groups with special bonds and shared secrets. Their organizations might have been parallel rather than equal to men's, might have been overlooked by historians focused on male power structures. But they were real, meaningful, and influential in women's lives. The history of women's secret societies also reveals something important about gender and power. When excluded from existing organizations, women created their own. When given subordinate roles, some accepted them while others demanded equality. When mainstream society restricted women's opportunities, secret societies sometimes provided alternatives. Spaces where women could lead, teach, and organize relatively free from male control. These organizations weren't perfect, often replicated class and racial hierarchies, but they represented women's agency and creativity in building community and meaning despite constraints. As we enter the 21st century, the nature of secrecy itself has transformed. In an age of digital surveillance, social media transparency, and information abundance, can secret societies still exist, or have new forms of exclusivity and hidden influence emerged that render traditional secret societies obsolete? Some traditional secret societies persist, adapting to contemporary circumstances. Freemasonry continues worldwide, though with declining membership in many countries. Lodges have launched websites, created social media presences, and made some information public while maintaining ritual secrecy. This represents a fundamental shift. Rather than being mysterious organizations that few know exist, they're known organizations with mysterious interior practices. The Bilderberg Group represents a modern form of elite gathering that attracts conspiracy theories similar to historical secret societies. Founded in 1954, Bilderberg brings together approximately 150 political, business, and cultural leaders annually for private discussions. While the existence of these meetings is public and participant lists are published, the actual discussions remain confidential. No minutes are published, no media are allowed, and participants agree not to quote each other. Critics view Bilderberg as a shadowy world government where the powerful decide humanity's fate beyond democratic accountability. Supporters argue it's simply a space for frank discussion away from media pressure, similar to academic conferences with Chatham House rules. The truth likely lies between. It's certainly an elite gathering where influential people discuss important issues, but evidence of actual conspiracy is thin. Still, the combination of power, wealth, and secrecy inevitably triggers suspicion. Bohemian Grove, a private campground in California, hosts an annual gathering of wealthy and powerful men that's become another focus of conspiracy theories. Members of the Bohemian Club, established in 1872, retreat to the Grove for 2 weeks each summer for theatrical performances, speeches, and socializing. The cremation of care ritual, performed in front of a giant owl statue, looks bizarre in photographs and fuels speculation about occult practices. In reality, Bohemian Grove is probably more about male bonding and networking among elites than sinister conspiracy. But again, the combination of exclusivity, wealth, power, and strange rituals creates conditions for conspiracy theories. When powerful people meet secretly, those excluded wonder what's being decided and suspect their interests aren't being represented. The internet age has created new forms of secretive organizing. Anonymous and other hacktivist collectives operate without formal membership, hierarchical structure, or initiation rituals, yet function as distributed secret societies bound by ideology and shared techniques. They have symbols, the Guy Fawkes mask, recognition systems, online signatures and credentials, and specialized knowledge hacking techniques, while members remain anonymous to each other and the public. Cryptocurrency communities sometimes resemble secret societies. Early Bitcoin adopters formed a community of believers in decentralized currency with Satoshi Nakamoto, Bitcoin's still unidentified creator, functioning as a mysterious founder figure. The culture around cryptocurrency includes its own language, symbols, and sense of being early adopters of technology that will transform society. Some crypto projects incorporate explicit mysticism and occult symbolism, suggesting continuity with older secret society traditions. The dark web hosts communities and markets that operate in true secrecy, protected by encryption and anonymity tools. While much dark web activity is illegal, it represents genuine secret organizing in the digital age. Communities that exist outside mainstream visibility, with their own norms, internal hierarchies, and specialized knowledge. These aren't secret societies in the traditional sense, but they share the characteristic of being intentionally hidden groups with insider knowledge. Corporate culture has absorbed some secret society elements. Tech companies like Apple and Google are notoriously secretive about product development, requiring employees to sign NDAs and compartmentalizing information. The culture of tech startups sometimes resembles secret societies. Small groups of true believers working on revolutionary projects that will supposedly change the world, bound by shared vision and proprietary knowledge. Elite universities maintain secret societies that continue traditions from earlier eras. Yale's Skull and Bones, Harvard's Final Clubs, and similar organizations at other prestigious schools still initiate members, maintain secret rituals, and create powerful networks. These societies face increasing criticism for exclusivity and privilege, with some universities trying to force them to accept women or open their membership. The societies resist, arguing for rights to private association, while critics argue they perpetuate inequality. The decline of many traditional secret societies reflects broader social changes. In an age where people can join online communities around any interest, where professional networking happens through LinkedIn, and where spiritual seeking occurs through countless available paths, traditional fraternal organizations offer less unique value. Why undergo elaborate initiations and attend regular lodge meetings when you can find community and meaning more easily elsewhere? Yet human needs for belonging, meaning, and transcendence haven't disappeared. New forms of exclusive communities have emerged to fill the void. Masterminds and exclusive coaching groups create tiers of access based on payment. Online communities have membership levels, with higher tiers receiving special content and access. Patreon and similar platforms allow creators to gate content by subscription level, creating hierarchies of insiders and outsiders. The modern wellness and personal development industry sometimes resembles secret society organizing. Multi-level marketing schemes use initiatory steps and exclusive knowledge claims. Leadership training programs promise transformation through specialized techniques. Some new religious movements and spiritual communities maintain secret teachings revealed only to advanced students. The forms have changed, but the pattern, promising transformation through exclusive knowledge and community, persists. Intelligence agencies and covert operations represent perhaps the purest modern form of secret societies. Organizations like the CIA, MI6, and Mossad operate with extreme secrecy, specialized knowledge, initiation processes, security clearances and training, and significant power. They're state-sanctioned rather than independent, but they share secret society characteristics. Conspiracy theories about deep-state shadow governments echo older fears about secret societies controlling events. The question of whether secret societies still influence world events is complex. Formal organizations with secret rituals have less power than in the past, but informal networks of elites, whether at Davos, in corporate boardrooms, or through old boys clubs from prestigious universities, certainly influence events. These aren't conspiracies so much as shared interests in social capital, but they function to concentrate power among those with insider access. The challenge for would-be secret societies today is that real secrecy is nearly impossible. Digital communications leave traces. Surveillance technology makes hidden meetings difficult. Whistleblowers can expose organizations. The internet distributes information rapidly. Traditional secret societies succeeded partly because information moved slowly and most people knew little beyond their immediate environment. Today's connected, transparent world makes genuine secrecy extremely difficult. Yet perhaps the most important evolution is that secret societies matter less because we've internalized some of their ideals. Democratic governance, universal education, scientific method, religious tolerance. Ideas that secret societies once championed or preserved during repressive times are now mainstream in liberal democracies. We don't need secret societies to preserve and promote these values when they're openly taught and practiced. The modern lesson about secret societies might be this: while the forms evolve, human desires for belonging, meaning, and transcendence remain constant. We'll always create groups with insiders and outsiders, special knowledge and common seekers, transformative experiences, and ordinary life. Whether these groups are called secret societies, exclusive communities, or something else, they fulfill deep psychological and social needs. And perhaps that's okay. The problem was never really that secret societies existed, but what they did with their secrecy. When they worked for human betterment, promoted enlightenment, or provided community and meaning, their secrecy protected valuable things. When they concentrated power without accountability, excluded unfairly, or pursued harmful aims, their secrecy enabled wrongdoing. The challenge has always been discernment, recognizing which is which and holding all organizations, secret or open, accountable to ethical standards and human welfare. The story of secret societies reminds us that humans are simultaneously transparent and mysterious, social and private, open and hidden. We share much in common, yet we also seek spaces where we can be understood by those who share our particular interests and commitments. We want both universal inclusion and intimate exclusivity, a paradox that secret societies have embodied throughout history. Whether as ancient mystics pursuing enlightenment, medieval craftsmen protecting trade secrets, revolutionary conspirators plotting against tyranny, or modern individuals seeking community and transcendence, we've always created these hidden spaces between public and private life. Thank you for joining me on this journey through secret doorways and down hidden passages. If you're already drifting off, then our mission is complete. But if you're still awake, perhaps another deep dive will carry you gently into slumber. Until we meet again in these quiet hours, may you find your own circle of belonging. May you keep some mysteries sacred, and may you never stop seeking wisdom in the spaces between what's known and what's hidden.